We welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting on May 8th, 2025. We thank the public for being here today. We will open with a Pledge of Allegiance from Commissioner Fugel and the opening remarks from Commissioner Martineau.
Please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father, on this day we ask we would have thy influence and thy direction as we discuss the inner workings of Pleasant Grove City, that we'd be able to take into account the residents, the needs of the city, and the codes that are in line, that we'd be able to make proper decisions on this night. Reading these things to thee in the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Commissioners. On tonight's agenda, item number 2 has been canceled as this is an approved use in a rural residential area. Permitted use. Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move we approve tonight's agenda with the omitting of item number 2 as it is a permitted use.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Martineau and a second by Commissioner Fugel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's staff reports?
I'll motion to approve tonight's staff reports.
Just wanted a clarification that there are 2 versions of one of the staff reports in the folder. Just make sure we're approving the final version.
To clarify, for the code text amendment staff report, it'll be the one that's called final version.
Yeah.
Maybe we can delete it right now.
Okay, I'll delete the second one.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Trickler, and I'm going to give the second to Commissioner Phillips. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any declarations of conflict or abstentions from Commissioner members? Awesome. Moving right along. We'll go to item number 1. This is a public hearing to consider the request of Todd Matthews for a conditional use permit to permit an addition onto a non-conforming home located at 1601 East, 200 South in the R1-9 zone.
Alrighty. Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm Jacob Hawkins from the Planning Department. So the first item that we have for tonight is a conditional use permit for a non-conforming home to construct an addition to the rear of their house. Now, we heard something similar like this not too long ago, so some of this may sound familiar. But to start off with, this is the subject property right here. Actually, let me scoot this over a bit. So this property is zoned R19, and same as all of the other properties to the east, west, and south. And then the property that just immediately surrounds the subject property, it's a little hard to see here, but this property it's got split zoning between the R19 zone and the R120 zone. But on the aerial map, if we look at this one, so here's where the subject property is, but you can see kind of surrounding it, a lot of this property is being used for orchards at this time. And the property owners for those properties are not interested in doing any form of subdivision plat at this time, which would have been one way how to resolve the issue. But in any case, let me go down to the site plan. This is what we've got. This is the proposed site plan that we'll be discussing tonight. A building is considered to be non-conforming if it lawfully existed prior to the zoning ordinances, prior to the current zoning ordinances. Now, the applicant states that the home was constructed approximately in 1952, and the earliest version of the zoning ordinances available to staff date back to 1963. And so because the home appears to have been built prior to the earliest version of the zoning ordinances available to staff, staff considers the home to be non-conforming. Now, section 17(3)(b), let's go here, of the zoning ordinances requires a conditional use permit when a non-conforming building is proposed to be expanded on. So kind of going over this section really quick, a conditional use permit may be granted to allow the expansion of a building which does not conform to height, lot coverage, setbacks, or area requirements if the following standards are met. Granting the expansion will not adversely impact the attainment of the general plan. The expansion will improve the general appearance and safety of the area. By expanding the building, the character of the neighborhood is not adversely impacted, and the expansion will improve the area by providing additional or adequate parking, and any expansion will be adequately screened or buffered if needed, so as not to create impacts to the adjoining properties. Kind of coming back here to the site plan though. So as you can see here, the proposed addition would be constructed on the north side of the home and would maintain a 3-foot distance from the side setback property line, from the side property line, which is about a foot further from the side property line than the existing building itself. The minimum setback requirements from a side property line in this zone is typically 10 feet. This addition would also be just under 700 square feet and is approximately 29 feet from the northern property line, and so it meets those zoning requirements. And then, if we go back here, just kind of explaining, an answer to some of these. So the proposed addition would not contribute towards nor negatively impact the general appearance, safety, or character of the neighborhood, as the proposed addition meets all the zoning requirements except for the side setback requirement. Adequate parking for the home is already provided in the driveway, and the general plan does not outline specific general requirements for setbacks in the single-family low-density designation, only that the intent of the single-family low-density designation is to maintain densities of 2 to 4 units per acre, and to act as a buffer between medium-density residential and the very low and rural residential areas. The final requirement here, though, is to provide adequate screening or buffering where needed to mitigate impacts to adjoining properties. The property surrounding the subject property, just as we were looking at before, remains vacant to the east and is intended to remain as an orchard for some time. However, it is possible for the development to occur within the surrounding area at some point in the future. If development were to occur on the property on the surrounding property, then such development would be required to follow the existing vicinity plan for the area for adequate access and service, or a vicinity plan amendment would be required before any new homes could be constructed. But because the impact of the proposed addition is minimal to the existing surrounding properties, and because future development would have an opportunity to further mitigate any impacts alongside the development, staff recommends that no new conditions be imposed for additional screening or buffering. But I can take any questions.
Any questions for Jacob?
So this new addition that they're putting in is not just a carport.
Correct,
They
it's not,
have already, it's a garage.
yeah, they already have a garage. This is just an addition to the home.
It's to the back of the house, that's no.
Yeah, it's just this portion right back here that they're adding.
But it has walls on all 4 sides. Okay.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you. Did you have a question too? Okay, perfect.
Is the applicant here? If you'd like, you can come to the podium and say hi if you want.
Good evening. My name is Todd Matthews, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding this matter tonight.
Does anyone have any questions for Todd? Thank you so much. for
Thank you.
being here.
Nice to meet you all.
This is a public hearing, so I will open it up to the public. Seeing none, I will close it to the public, and I will bring it back up to the commissioners for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion if there's no questions. I move the planning commission approve the request of Todd Matthews for the conditional use permit to allow an expansion of a non-conforming building located at 1601 East, 200 South in the R19 zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report, and is modified by the condition below that all final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fugel and a second by Commissioner Martineau. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Third agenda item is a public hearing to consider the request of Ben Huntsman for code text amendment to amend sections 10-6-2 definitions and 10-9A-8 yard requirements in the rural residential zone. The applicant is requesting to amend the setback requirements for accessory buildings in the rural residential zone and add, amend, or clarify several terms in the land use definitions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So just to clarify, for the item that we're going to be hearing tonight, we're just going to be doing one of those sections. We're not going to be doing anything for section 10.6.2. We're only going to be doing section 10.9A.8 for the proposed code text amendment tonight.
Did you change in the motion?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure that when we do the motion, we only do the portion of the code that we're reviewing today.
That is 10-9A-8, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Alrighty. So the last item that we have for tonight is a code text amendment for Ben Huntsman to amend the requirements for accessory buildings in the rural residential zone. The applicant has been working with staff to apply for a building permit for a proposed accessory building, but as we looked at the proposed plans and at the code, we noticed that in the rural residential zone, there's this section of code right here that says accessory buildings may be located in a rear yard no closer than 20 feet from the dwelling and no closer than 3 feet from the rear or side property line. Now, the applicant for tonight isn't the only one who has had to make changes to their plans to meet these zoning requirements, but let me give you a bit of context for why things have been the way how they are. Now, the rural residential zone is intended for large parcels of land that create a kind of harmonious integration with incidental agricultural uses and animal rights and single-family dwelling units. And the reason for the 20-foot separation requirement from a residence is that in the rural residential zone, many accessory buildings have been used for the housing of animals or for agricultural uses, such as corrals, barns, and storage buildings for agricultural uses and plants and vehicles. And to protect the property owner as well as neighboring properties from any issues arising from health or safety, especially when it comes to something like fire, it has always been required that such buildings remain farther away from the primary residence than accessory buildings in single-family residential zones, where animal rights and such aren't really permitted. Now, speaking of single-family zones, the R1 zones do not permit agricultural uses or animal rights, and instead, neighborhoods in R1 zones maintain a traditional vision of single-family living. Accessory buildings in these zones typically include detached garages, small sheds, pool houses, and detached accessory apartments. And because there's not so much of a worry about how accessory buildings are being used in R1 zones, the minimum distance between an accessory building and the primary residence is 6 feet, which is similar to what other surrounding cities require in their single-family residential zones. As Pleasant Grove continues to develop and redevelop, many of the properties in the rural residential zone that were once large properties used for agriculture and animal rights have been developed into smaller lots that do not significantly exceed the minimum lot size requirement of a half acre. Now, while these lots still meet the minimum lot size requirements, many neighborhoods in the rural residential zone are no longer utilized for agricultural or animal rights, instead following a more traditional single-family setting, including their use of accessory buildings. And so, considering the different types of neighborhoods and permitted uses in the rural residential zone, staff finds no reason to maintain the 20-foot separation requirement for all accessory buildings, and instead proposes different separation distances according to the proposed uses of the accessory buildings. 50 feet for accessory buildings used for the housing of animals, which, you know, it's a little bit sneaky, but that has also always been required in the rural residential zone. It's just down here below the table of setbacks. 20 feet for accessory buildings used for agricultural uses, and 6 feet for accessory buildings used for typical single-family uses, like a garage or a shed or an accessory apartment. Actually, I'm going to go here so you can kind of see what that proposal is going to be. So the applicant has also proposed that accessory buildings should not be limited to just the rear yard of a property in the rural residential zone, but should also be permitted in an interior side yard, so long as all requirements for accessory buildings are met, such as setbacks and height, similar to the requirements of the single-family zone. So we'll come back to this here in just a second, but I do want to show you this, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, except things have disappeared. Okay, well, anyways, there were a couple little bits here, but I had an idea of there should be like an accessory building thing right here and an accessory building thing right here, just as an example. But this image kind of captures how we classify what a rear yard is versus an interior side yard. So the rear yard would be something like this blue section, where you have the garage and the front door facing a particular side. And so the front yard would be that side, the interior side yard would be between the interior property line and the house, and then the street side yard would be between the house and the street on the side of the property, and then the rear yard is anything that is opposite of the front yard, essentially, so from the rear wall of the house to the back property line. So in the rural residential zone, accessory buildings are only permitted in the rear yard of a property, but in R1 zones, accessory buildings may also be located in the interior side yard or the pink portion. It doesn't seem like much of a difference, but the interior side yard of a property seems to be a favorite place to construct an accessory building, and that way people can have a definite backyard. In the rural residential zone, accessory buildings typically utilized for agricultural and animal uses have been intended to be located on larger properties where the necessary setback and location requirements could be met, such as deep lots. To allow for more flexibility for the placement of accessory buildings as properties are developed and redeveloped, staff agrees that accessory buildings may be placed within an interior side yard similar to the requirements in the R1 zone. However, in the case of corner lots specifically, staff proposes accessory buildings to maintain a 25-foot setback, just right here, for any accessory building, maintain a 25 setback from any property line abutting a street when access is provided to a garage, carport, parking area, or other similar accessory structure. In doing so, any vehicles parked in front of the detached garage, carport, or parking area will not overhang into the right-of-way. Otherwise, if no access is being provided to an accessory building from the street, then the accessory building can be 10 feet from the side property line. So because it does not appear that there will be any negative impacts from the proposed request, would it instead allow for more flexibility in the location of accessory buildings and could create more opportunities for accessory apartments. Staff recommends approval of the proposed code text amendment. And I can take any questions. And I can also go through this. Let me go through this really quick and show you what the actual changes are going to be. So the main change is going to be right here, where it talks about the rear yard and interior side yard of an accessory building. So here we have it divided up into the 3 different sections, and I think something broke right here. This will be A, B, and C, not D, E, and F. So I'll fix that. But this first one is going to be just your standard garage or carport or accessory apartment or something that you would find in just any normal single-family setting. The second one is going to be for agricultural uses, such as barns, where, people will store hay or plants or their vehicles or things like that, things that you would find in the typical rural residential zone. And then those used for the housing of animals, they do have to have that larger setback distance, and so we're just moving it from where it was before up to this particular section. But otherwise, nothing else is changing for that particular section. And that's where it was before. Coming down, this is the other section where we're introducing the requirements to have, I think this should be 25 feet. So that's something else we'll have to change, 25 or 20 feet? 20? Okay. So we'll keep it at 20 feet then, in that case. This will be the proposed code text amendment. So if access is being provided from a street side to an accessory building or carport or something, they'll need to have the 20 feet. And I think those are all the changes. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you defining access?
Access would be something that we have already defined essentially in section 18 right here. We have a section right here that talks about access onto a property here in letter X. Ingress and egress. And any access to an accessory building or to a home or anything, access onto the property, the curb cut itself has to meet these requirements.
So it doesn't include pedestrian access?
It doesn't include pedestrian, because sidewalks would be in the right of way.
Right, and what I'm getting at there is, if they build an accessory dwelling unit right there, they put it 3 feet from the edge, the idea is to rent that out. What's to discourage people from parking on the street, which isn't allowed already anyway? They put their door right there, and it looks like a separate home on facing the other way if you go back to the corner lot there.
So I believe we have another section of code when it comes to accessory apartments specifically, which I think is what you're getting at.
Sure.
That actually says there needs to be parking on the property. People cannot park in the street for that.
There does, but they put a front door facing the other way. They have parking on the other side of the lot. Where's somebody gonna park? If you pull up your map.
This thing?
So they build this right here, but they don't put in a driveway, right? They build it here 3 feet off the edge, which is what the code would allow. And they say, okay, this is an accessory apartment that they're gonna have, and they say they have parking over here for their accessory apartment, but yet it has a door right there. What's to keep people from parking right there? Other than our code says it. What's to discourage people from parking right there?
Yeah, so one clarification is that it wouldn't be 3 feet from the property line right here. This thing didn't show up all that well, but this is a little driveway for like an accessory building. There is still gonna be a requirement at the very least that if there is no, parking access from the street over here, that they would still have to be at least 10 feet away from that side. But to that point, it sounds like you want to talk about it?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, but still, to that point, if someone did want to, have a home there and like a sidewalk connecting it, I think that's something that staff would permit, but we do still have the requirement that all the parking requirement, the minimum parking requirement for accessory buildings has to be met on the property.
Sure,
But Commissioner Fuga, it's not 3 feet, it's 10 feet.
sure.
Okay.
10 feet isn't enough parking anyway, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine that the code says that, but if we don't have to change that right now, and people are gonna park on that road to get to that house if there's a door and an access there, a pedestrian access. If we don't have to change it to allow that and then run into that issue in the future, that would be my preference.
I mean, the goal isn't necessarily to get rid of on-street parking entirely. We do permit people to park on the street. It's just I can't count it towards the minimum requirements.
Right.
What's
I don't like on-street parking, and I'll be honest, because they don't move their cars in the winter when it is illegal,
Right.
and it causes other issues. So if we can discourage on-street parking, it's also why we require parking spots when there is an accessory apartment on the lot, is we want off-street parking available, which means we do want to discourage on-street parking.
To the point, though, our current zoning ordinances already permit accessory buildings to be located in a rear yard 10 feet from the street side property
Yeah.
line. So this wouldn't be changing anything to that. It's just adding an extra stipulation that if there is going to be access, that we would need that 20 feet. So that way, any vehicles would not overhang into the.
Also, 20 feet isn't long enough. I think we've established that when we looked at parking spaces. F-150, the most common road out there, I think is 21 feet. So I don't think 20 feet's enough, but
But what was this, if I'm understanding correctly, Commissioner Fugel, so what you're saying is that,
I just, if we allow this, and these lots are large enough, the homes are large enough, this could look like a standalone home, right? And if we're gonna encourage them to build a standalone home with just a pedestrian access, we're just encouraging people to park on the road more.
okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that, and again, I have to repeat it to make sure that I get
You're
it
good.
correctly.
Yeah.
So you're telling us that if we do an accessory, 'cause it could be an accessory dwelling, but also could be a garage,
Right.
right? And what happens here, our code right now allows, let's pretend this is a garage, and allows the garage to be built at 10 feet, you know? But that means that they cannot, if we have a building right here at 10 feet from the street, I want to stand up on the podium.
Yeah. There it shows up again. You can kind of click and drag that around.
That's all right. Thank you. You can stay here with me. So, right now we're allowed to something be at 10 feet, but it doesn't need to have access, right? But I'm assuming that if I build something right there, or anybody builds something right there, and we don't want, and I rent that out, probably I don't want people to park in my front yard, and I would say, hey, this is a completely separate situation, and people will park on the street right here because they only have 10 feet, and then go. And we want to discourage that, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And you're saying that the 20 is not enough. Even if we put, well, the way that it's written, 20, number one, is not enough because we something bigger than trucks that are longer than 20. But the second one is, since you're saying access, meaning that someone can do just put it at 10 feet, say this is only pedestrian, and they will still park right there. So we need to
Right,
find
which is what I'm saying. If access had defined pedestrian as well and required that setback, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, that's so we can. I mean, we can discuss that, and I will tell you a couple of changes that we can do. But let's, if you guys agree on to make those changes, then we can see if we can type something right now. Go back to the code, Jacob, because I have a suggestion with something that we can do.
This one? Or this one?
Yeah.
The code, that was that's perfect.
Pedestrian and
So it says,
Yeah.
when access to an accessory building, so what we gotta say is just, when access to an accessory dwelling is provided,
Yeah.
okay? Is provided either vehicular or pedestrian access, we gotta be careful on that.
We probably want to
Yeah,
attach garages and such.
yeah. When access to, yeah, right here, what I suggest is that we do pedestrian and vehicular access, so we're covering both, and then we increase this to 25.
I'd feel more comfortable about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we can do something like this. That's why it takes me 2 hours to write that report, because I cannot type.
It's also hard when everybody's watching. Been there.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just change the word as well.
Instead of building
Yes,
dwelling.
25 feet.
Were you gonna change the word building to dwelling?
Or leave it building, that way.
Just live in a
if it's
building, 'cause it could be a garage, or
Yeah.
it could be a home.
Okay.
So that's why we don't have to just keep it like that. Okay? That's something that we can propose, make sure we save it like that. Okay? Thank you.
I have two other areas of questions, but I'll let somebody else hop in if they want to.
Go ahead.
How was the reasoning for the initial spacing determined? When you talked about it was because there was primarily used for animal dwellings and
20
those
feet and
types
the
of things.
50 feet
Because,
and all that.
yeah, how was that determined that that was the reasoning?
That was much before my time, but.
But I mean, like, what did you look up?
What did I look up? So we have worked with the fire department for some of those reasons why, like, they're okay with, some like shorter, setback requirements, but overall, mostly for like the fire safety would be one of those things. And then the smell and the maintenance of animals, I suppose. Those are other things.
So,
Because I would imagine that there's other reasons for it too. I think there's more
Oh,
reasons
sure.
for what you listed out in the staff report and your reasoning here. One of them being that rural residential is meant to feel more spacious as well. That's kind of what the enjoyment of that land is supposed to be towards. And so if we start allowing a condensing of those units, even you'll have the space outside the property, it starts to feel more condensed. And I was wondering if in your research and what you were looking at, if that was considered as well.
can I answer to that one, Chair?
Go for it.
I just realized I've been jumping in without asking permission to speak. That was a complicated situation to determine why the 20 feet, okay? Because our current code doesn't even include the 6 feet. Our current code just says 20 for everything. That's it. So trying to find the reason why, we couldn't find a reason why, okay? It could be one of them. I think when we were writing the staff report, Jacob, we said that as more uses are permitted in the rural residential zone, they were hopefully to provide that extra space for those specific uses, because the more spacious type of situation, I don't know. I mean, I've never draft a code just to create more space or something like that because the zone is bigger. But it could be, we just couldn't, so in this case, pretty much we're assuming. So we had two setbacks already established in the code, the 20 feet setback, and we have is it 75, Jacob?
75
75.
for neighboring.
So those two were already established already there. So we don't know where the 20 came because there was no explanation. I understand the explanation for the 6 feet. That one 100% has to do with the fire-rated wall and stuff like that. So because if you do it, Commissioner Martino, correct me if I'm wrong. You know more than me about this. If you do a closer than 6 feet, which most jurisdictions won't allow you, then you have to do some sort of type rating wall.
Yes, you have to have fire-rated walls, and exterior of the buildings have to have a fire rating for a 2-hour
Correct.
burn.
So that's why I think that's where the code stem from. In reality, where the 20 came from, we don't know. We're just assuming that's the reason why. And the problem is that a lot of these lots, for example, as they're built right now, a lot that is only half an acre, which is a lot of our lots in the rural residential, they're just half acre. They're residential in nature with no agricultural uses whatsoever. They're even too small. As I'm doing more research into this, I'm realizing that a lot that is half acre, you cannot even have one horse. Because in order to calculate how many animals you can feed, you need to deduct the area where the home is. And then you have less than half an acre. So they're used as a single family zone. So we're just leaving the 20 because also that's something that talking with the fire department, if you have like hay or you storage materials for food for the animals that go dry or something like that, they're more flammable and they're easy to jump to the buildings, is to start a fire right there. So that's why we kept that 20. There must be a reason why they have the 20, and that's the only one we could think of, and that's why we kept it right there. But a lot of the buildings, sorry, I just this last thing, and then I'll shut up. A lot of the buildings that are built in the are right now, they're like garages or sheds or pergolas or something like that are in the backyard that you can't even see it from the street. And then we're saying like, yeah, you have to build them 20 feet from it. And they're like, "Ay, okay, well, how come everybody else can do a 6? And we really don't have an answer for it. We're like, it's a pergola. It's just a covered patio, similar to anybody else. And we say, but our code only allows to 20. We don't allow to 6 feet at this point. So, yeah.
So I agree with everything you say. You drive through that area, it feels like a single-family residential area, not an agricultural area, which goes to the follow-up of this is why aren't we exploring the idea of rezoning to, say, an R150 zone?
Because the general plan only, it gives us recommendations on what should be zoned what.
Right, but I think that it would be prudent to amend our general plan, take a look at this and say, if that's where the use is going anyway, and it can't be used for what the rural residential zone is set up to do anyway, then it's time for us to amend it to fit with what the use is actually doing in that land. Because that would solve a lot of these issues. Because right now we're trying to balance, let's keep those animal rights and those things that come with a rural residential zone versus what's in our normal single-family residential zones. And it's causing conflict. And so it's obviously not going to be solved tonight, but I think we should look at establishing an R150 zone or something along those lines, a half-acre lot zone. Because it's obviously causing issues. We're trying to treat it.
What's an R150 zone? I'm not.
I mean, it's just a
Oh,
like
okay,
to
okay,
follow
okay.
like our other stuff, like an
I'm halfway
R110,
here trying to figure
single
out.
family residential with a half-acre lot minimum.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
but
R120 is probably the closest.
yeah, it's my numbers were off. I was just following stuff, but half is 5 in my mind, so I said 50. But I mean, and so, but it is more and more creating that conflict of we're trying to treat it like a true single-family residential, just like everything else in the city, like your R110, your R120, but it's not.
And I see what you're saying about like just kind of amending the general plan. I do feel like if we want to, apply the R120 zone to multiple properties, then it's going to be application after application, whereas the code text amendment just kind of solves it, even though it doesn't quite meet what.
I mean, does it solve it? Because I think we're going to see this stuff come in time and time again. Other things we're going to start running into more people to being like, well, this is RR, so I should have animal rights. It's too small of a property. It's causing the use of what that neighborhood has become. It's not an animal rights type neighborhood anymore, and you're going to cause more and more issues. So there's probably not a great solution, but it really seems like that's the area that it's headed towards, and so it should be explored in that regard.
But even, Commissioner, even let's say you have a property that is 2 acres, okay? So you have a property that is 2 acres, and we keep it in the rural residential zones, it's 2 acres. Even like that, I think there should be a difference when you're building a garage versus when you're building a silo versus when you're building a corral.
Sure, I don't disagree with that, but if part of our reasoning for doing this today is that the use of that land in that area is changing because of the types of homes that are being built in the area, we should look at what that means.
I think what we're saying is that there's a lot of them that already exist, that are in the rural residential, and they want to keep it rural residential because, sure, they cannot have 1 cow, but they can have more chickens, for example, or they can have stuff like that. And so they would like to keep it like the way it is.
See, now I feel like we're just trying to play on both sides, which is, again, causing the issue. Like you want all the benefits of a rural residential, but you want to treat it like our other single-family residential.
Well, what I'm trying to say is like, even if in this rural residential that is half acre, 2 acres, 5 acres, no matter what, like, we should have a distinctions of that. The single family doesn't allow to have animals, wouldn't allow to storage hay, for example, in a single family. So no matter the size of the lot, even if we create a different zone, I think we need to have these 3 different setbacks for 3 different type of structures, regardless where the zone is, the lot is half acre, 1, 2, or 3, or 4 acres. I think regardless of that, we still, say we create a different zone, I'll propose that we continue with those 3 differentiations, because there are different uses that are permitted in the zone, and we want to keep it at a different distance. Now, if the 20 is a problem, we can eliminate the 20 totally. But I think they need, if it's a garage, I don't see a difference why we need to keep a garage 20 feet or a shed or a yoga studio or something like that, 20 feet versus 6 feet from the property. That's what staff is proposing.
Yeah, and we went off on a tangent here, but I think it's something that we should address and look at that in the future. It's not something for tonight, like we can move forward with it tonight, but we should look at, if the real use of that land has changed, then we should look at how it's zoned and see if it's proper to amend our general plan there.
We'll take a look at it.
Are there any other questions for Jacob?
Yeah, I have another one.
I have a question, actually. When it says, required in subsection G2 of this section, what is that G2?
That's this section right here.
That's G2?
Yeah, the letters were all
Okay.
jumbled up in the staff report. I apologize. I'm not sure what happened. I went ahead and changed them right here. So it actually starts at letter A and goes down, and then this is number 1, and then lowercase a, b, c.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know what happened, but this is the way how it should read. So section G2, this whole
Okay.
section.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Batter's up.
Okay, if you pull back up that other drawing that you did, if we were to max out, yep, right there, if their neighbor that's on the corner were to build a very similar lot, and let's put it all the way up to the front of the side lot,
Something like this.
yep,
Gotcha.
and they build them both all the way up to the front, there's nothing currently that would prevent just creating a wall of buildings all at the same level right there, right? That are, there could be as little as 6 feet in between those two buildings, right?
It depends on what the height of those buildings are going to be. If these buildings are going to be 12 feet or less, then yeah, 3 feet from the property line, 3 feet from the property line, and then 6 feet separation from the house.
If it's attached,
No, if it's detached, if we have home, accessory building, home.
I'm just going based on that drawing that you're doing right there. For example, that cannot happen in that
No,
way.
detach that.
Yeah.
It just
I'll
needs to
make
get
it
smaller.
It's just,
So it's 6 feet off of that house and 3 feet off the property line,
Got it.
something like that.
right? So is there anything currently, and I apologize if I didn't pay enough attention, to have them building another accessory building on the other side? On the interior lot?
Right over here.
Yeah,
So there's the lot coverage requirement, and there's the requirement that accessory buildings can only be a certain size limit in the R1 zone. In the rural residential zone, there is not anything like that. There is no maximum.
and lot coverage is 40%, so they could actually extend it all the way back to the same size as that and still probably not cover 40% of the lot.
Potentially, it depends on
Right.
how the lot's built.
And I realize I'm talking worst case scenario here, but I think we've dealt with enough developers that worst case scenario is a possibility. If you do that, that follows all of our code, follows what we're doing, but then we are encouraging just essentially a sheer wall of buildings with 6 feet in between them.
Mhm.
And is that what we want in that zone as well?
So realistically, I don't think, it could happen, but looking at our R1 zone, which would permit something like this already.
I mean, kind of, but our R1 zone, those building envelopes are so small that there's really only 10 feet on the side of most of those houses. So to build something there just isn't usable. Especially if you have to put 6 feet in between it, and then 3 feet, you're building a 1 foot wide building. It's different in a half acre lot or bigger.
It kind of comes back, I feel, to the feel of the neighborhood. If it actually is if it feels like rural residential, where they're actually having all the animals and they've got the really large properties and such. Most of the accessory buildings, I believe, will be in the backyard or a little bit further away from the house. But in areas when it's more like a single family kind of neighborhood, traditional neighborhood, a lot of times those houses match something that you would see in the R1 zone, where they are located, where the house itself is located, 10, maybe 15 feet from the property line.
But that's not the requirement.
That's not the requirement, but
And there
I
would be
mean,
nothing that would allow you to deny that if that application were to come through, if we were to make this change.
correct. But I mean, kind of just as an example, though, let me just grab some of these ones.
I mean, I don't doubt that that's practically what would happen, but you get somebody that wants to be really advantageous with how they're building it. You get 2 or 3 neighborhoods, you get, developer comes in, subdivides that property, a larger property, they start building it that way too. It should be a consideration here that there could be just a sheer wall if we allow it on the side property of homes all along an area within your rural residential zone. And is that what we want to allow? And I get, may not happen, but it also may. I see a lot of scenarios where it would. Which I think destroys the feel of the neighborhood and what it's supposed to be.
Would you rather than that they take out the interior side and just permit that 6 feet dwelling in the rear?
I would. I think it does a better job of protecting the neighborhood for the use that it's intended to not allow on the side lots.
Give me a second.
Well,
How
that
about
depends on
we
the lot,
open
so
it to
some
the
of these side
public,
lots are bigger
open
than
it
the
to the
rear lot.
public,
I
and
kn-
then we bring it
So
back
you
to the
can't just-
discussion with the planning commission. We're still in the process of presenting, I think.
Yeah, and asking questions, but
Yeah, but
I-
I'm saying, when we start talking between each other, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to avoid.
Yeah, and I'll let the applicant kind of talk about what it is that he wants to do as well, and you can probably get an idea.
I mean, and that's fine, but I will say, we're not talking about just what the applicant wants to do. And we need to keep that in mind as we're moving forward through this. Because this is changing it for the entire zone moving forward,
Citywide.
so
Did you have any more questions?
apparently not.
Well, we can probably let the applicant talk, and I can still be here to answer some questions too if we have more after he just kind of explains what it is that he wants to do.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jacob. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Can you,
I'm completely confused. Because I don't understand anything.
can you just state your name for,
We
sorry,
talked about-
excuse me.
Oh,
Can
I'm
you
sorry, go
just
ahead.
state your name for the record?
Yeah, Ben Huntsman.
Thank you.
I apologize.
No worries.
Sorry. I'm not used to doing this. First time. So I think originally we discussed the code text amendment. Well, we discussed rezoning and then a code text amendment and then back to rezoning. Because right now it's rural residential. And instead of that going to the R, I believe it's 120. Because I believe everything, I think, didn't you say? Is that the easiest way, just to explain what I want to do?
there's a little laser pointer thing right there too. So, yeah, if you just want to explain like how you want to do your accessory building, what it's going to look like when you couldn't do it before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think in RR, they were saying you have to, so this is my house here.
And if you don't mind speaking into the microphone too, sorry, it's hard
Sorry.
to pick up on.
I have bad eyesight, and I didn't bring my
Oh, do ya?
my glasses, yeah, so I'll.
Put your left arm behind your back.
Yeah, seriously, we're making you do a
I
dance
mean-
up there, jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules here, man. I was not prepared for all these rules. Okay. Microphone. Pointer. Forgot my glasses.
Left hand on yellow circle.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so it was my understanding that in the RR zone, which I am, you would have to build behind. So this is considered everything behind here is considered backyard. Everything in front of that is considered front yard. Then you have your side yard, and then what little side yard there is there. So the problem I was running into in the RR zone, and why I was talking about going either code text amendment or rezoning, then that would allow me to move my structure forward. Realistically, I only need to move it forward like 10 feet. Right here I have a fire pit area that's mature with a lot of mature trees right here. This is just a small shed that would be removed. So if I had to build, if it stayed in the RR zone, or there was no code text amendment, it wouldn't allow me to, essentially I would have to rip out a $60,000 fire pit area. Whereas if I got the rezone or the code text amendment, I would just move my shed or dwelling, whatever you guys call it, 10 feet forward, and it would be right here. Does that make sense? But the setbacks would still be the 16 feet, and I think it's 20 feet, and then it would be, that's what I'm trying to do, is just build right here, without having to rip all this fire pit area that I've put in out.
Yeah.
And so I think either way, either code text amendment or the rezoning to the R, because everything behind me, everything down below me is the R120. I think me and then Robbie Weber are the last two that are in the RR zone.
Can we pull that up, see which is RR and which is
And then
R120?
and then some of these older houses, I think Greg Cook, who purchased my childhood home and ripped it down. I think he might still be in the RR zone, but
Ben, can I just ask you what is it you want to build?
a garage with a. My mom's getting really old, and at some point, I'd like to bring her over. She's gonna have to have someone to take care of her. So I thought if I was to put like a small like apartment above the garage, that's what I would like to do.
So the green is rural residential, the gray is R120.
Right, so this is the Murdochs, and that's RR, and that's Weber, and he's RR. And I've already talked to him, and he's happy to go to the R120 as well, which would basically coincide with everything else that's, and that, I mean, this goes on forever in the R120, so I think that R120 would allow me to do what I need to do. And if a code text amendment is easier, that's fine also. Whatever is best for the city is fine with me. You know, and I think either way would work. So, I don't know. Is there any other questions?
Is there a serious time frame for you wanting to get this done?
I mean, sooner the better always, but I'm not like,
Purpose for me asking is if we table this and bring it up again, allow us to have some more internal discussions and decide whether what is best with the code text amendment or changing your zoning. It might be better to discuss that so we can get more of our issues resolved so we can help you.
okay.
But if I postpone it, we don't want to stretch it out a long time so you aren't able to build. And that's why the question is how soon do you really need to get this in? Because I don't want to postpone your building if we can help that also.
Right, I mean, if you're talking a month or so, that's not a problem. If you're talking 3 to plus months, then I think it starts to become
Okay.
a problem for me, but I don't think
I
that's.
would assume we could work the details out within a month, but.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, it's just 10 feet forward from
Yeah.
is all I'm looking to do. And with the RR zone, it doesn't allow you to build. You have to stay in the backyard, which wouldn't allow me to do that without
Without
excavating.
destroying the fire pit.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, it was a pretty expensive build. So, yeah, the rezone or the code text amendment, whatever fits better for you guys is perfectly fine with me.
Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
I don't. I just see, I'm, don't have anything against what you're trying to do. Just trying to prevent some unintended consequences throughout the entire RR zone citywide.
I can understand that.
So that's more of what our conversation was about, and I realized we got deep into stuff that doesn't apply to you, but it
Yeah, I wasn't
would
quite
apply with
catching
the,
it.
it
I
would
caught
apply
what
with the
you were trying
amendment.
to say, and I do agree with what you were saying, most of it. So I can see exactly what you were saying.
So it may be best for us to take a minute and think about how do we,
That's why I thought the rezone might be.
yeah. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it'll be, let's think through it. That may be where we continue it for 2 weeks or something like that, and then talk about it again, but we'll see. We'll see how the rest of this conversation goes and see what we can come up with.
Okay, yeah, but I totally understood what you were getting at.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think my particular property interferes either way with, I think with what you were saying
Yeah.
prior. So,
Yeah, your neighbor up on the corner though, that would start to come into play.
which is that?
Yeah, up there off 2600 North.
Oh, up here,
Yeah,
which used to be the Bachelor property, yeah. It would be nice if we could get the sidewalk finished from here to there too.
yeah. Daniel, just do that.
Just because of the accident that just happened, I was just talking to Jacob
Yeah.
a second ago. A lot of the kids down here go to this private school and they get right to my house and they cross, and I'm telling you, cars come around here
Yeah,
at speeds that you would.
and that's a
It's
downhill right there too.
mind-blowing. Yeah, so they get there and they cross because there's no more sidewalk. I mean, they did all the sidewalk and then they skipped that little like
Yeah.
section just right there.
We could talk about sidewalks for a really long
Can I
time
just
here,
build it
but,
myself?
but I'll just thank you for coming in, and
Thank you. I appreciate it.
this is a public hearing, so.
Yeah, sorry to not be to your decorum or whatever.
No, you're good.
Oh, no, you're
This
good.
is just like, this
No, I
is,
thank you for your time. Yeah, you're good.
this is alien to me, so, all right. Anything else? We're good.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so I'll open it up to the public. Seeing none, I will bring it back up to the commissioners for a discussion or a motion.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, man.
I really like the idea of just rezoning.
But then he'd have to reapply and we'd have to hear the rezone is all.
Would there be other disadvantages that we aren't thinking about rezoning those two properties to R120?
Sorry, can you repeat it again, Commissioner?
Would there be other unintended consequences that we're not thinking about to
No.
rezoning those two properties to R120?
No, I just want to make sure that we all commissioners are on the same, just to follow procedure, that you guys are on the same page, right? Because we're proposing a code right now that has two parts, okay? One part is the setbacks regarding not the setbacks, the distance between main dwelling and accessory ones, and the other one is to allow the accessory dwellings beyond on the side yard, okay? So, what Commissioner Fugel is saying is that right now, I'm gonna use, this is a great, actually, you know what, do we have, yeah, this will be better. This one? Okay, yeah, this is perfect. So, right now they're in the rural residential. These are in the R120. Commissioner Fugel is saying, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Fugel, but what you're saying is, right now we have a house right here and a house right here. And right now, someone can do some sort of like this. Right now. Oh. Let me see. I'm gonna redo it again. Sorry about that. Okay. and then the neighbor can do some sort of like this. Actually, they do have a structure right here. To make them more. I told them to turn it on because that's how we do it in the city council. But if you guys want them off, we'll do it off. Okay, so that is permitted right now. Are we all on the same page? So that is permitted right now, okay?
Yes.
And what is being proposed right now is to change that so someone can be able to do some sort of like this. Or that's what Commissioner Fugel is telling us, like, we gotta be careful not to allow to have something like.
Because
this.
all of a sudden that changes that from it seems like individual half-acre lots to now you've got 4 quarter-acre lots, which is the purpose of a different zone, is what it feels like from the road if they were to build in these red
You have
areas.
6 feet right there. Yeesh. Okay, correct, Commissioner Fugel? So,
Yep.
are those drawings, so right now, blue is permitted, red is not permitted. But red will be permitted if it was a different zone, if it's in the R120. So just make sure that we all, that we all are on the same page. It looks like, oh, he's gone. The applicant is gone.
He didn't
but-
want it to. He didn't want to stay for the rest of it.
I think he thought we were done.
Yeah, I think that we're done. So, this is a portion of the code text amendment. We're presenting a code text amendment for you guys. Staff still would like to pursue with the distance from the 620 and 75. We still want to pursue with that one or proceed with that one because I have not just one applicant, I have multiple applicants waiting on that one. So that's something that has been giving us heartburn for the last couple of years. That will solve a lot of issues that we have right now with accessory structures. And if this is something that we don't feel like we feel comfortable with in the discussion of you guys, then we can, you can for a recommendation, we scratch that out and bring it back, or if you guys want extra work on it or just eliminated it, that's for you guys to have that discussion, okay? The applicant, fortunately for him, he has the chance to rezone it too. That's another option that he had, okay? So we can either or, but we'll still like to keep forward with the idea of the setbacks for the 620 and 75 instead of having just 20 and 75.
But so in the 120, they could have the red boxes
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess I'm okay with this, because I don't
Because
know.
they can do it in the 120,
Yeah,
and the rural
yeah.
residential's even bigger, so we're just allowing them kind of the same thing.
So you're kind of limiting them to have a bigger, or being in that RR zone, so.
That's for a discussion for you guys to have and
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
vote on it or how you guys feel about it, but yeah, okay? I just want to make sure that we have those squares so we can figure out how it may look.
Thank you,
In the
Daniel.
R120 though, are they allowed to build up to 3 feet from the property edge?
Yeah. As an accessory building, yeah. Few people will do it, but yeah, they're allowed to do it. Yeah. Yeah, because if this.
For height, yeah.
For height, yeah, so we're talking about 3 feet, but only if it's 1 story, pretty much. If it's at the peak, has to be 12 feet taller at the peak, not at the eave of the roof, but at the peak, from the ground to the peak, 12 feet. But yeah,
Thank you.
let's discuss among ourselves. I always want to say that.
I get what you're saying, but I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I do want to, I'm not fully against it,
No,
but
I
I
know.
think we need to talk about that. I do want to discourage people building dwellings that are going to encourage on-street parking. That it's an accessory dwelling from the main dwelling unit, but if it's on a corner and off to the side, feels like a separate house.
Did we
And I
not
think
address
addressing that with the access definition, it probably does that, but.
So just to be clear, we address,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Yeah.
On the changes that we did, right? Okay.
Yes, on the changes that we've made, address that,
Okay.
if I understand everything correct, also.
Can I ask a question? So these two lots, these two, that we might change the zoning, that we might, how big are those two lots? Are they an acre?
You can just click on the,
I think they're
0.5 and
half an
0.5.
acre, but
So his is an acre, and this one is 0.5. Is that really an acre? Oh, not printing.
And that's
Stop
rural,
it.
isn't it? That's RR.
Something like that. Oh, that's a half acre.
Yeah, they're both,
Must
they're
not be.
half acre lots. 43,560 is an acre.
So I wonder why this says 0.53 acres, because that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
0.53 is half.
Oh, probably because it's with that one.
they have the same number.
Yeah, they've got the same
They
parcel
have to.
number.
Remember when we
Why is it drawn separate then?
County stuff.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so with the changes and making sure that we've got setback for an access, including sidewalk, pedestrian, and vehicle, are we okay by approving this then?
Yeah.
I am.
So we want to just do the code text amendment for the whole city?
I'm gonna throw how do you say that? No, a wrench into the, or a
Monkey
monkey
wrench.
wrench? No, a monkey wrench.
Little
Uh,
mono?
Chair, can I go to the front? Yeah.
Say no.
I know, because we were about to have this resolved.
Because I can totally see your concern, Commissioner Fugel. Another thing that we can do that may appease that situation is that we said, for example, we already have what the 3 feet for this, but we can say that in the case when accessory structure is on the side yard, and I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? I'm always honest with you guys, but I want to explain something to you. My staff takes building permits, and unless it's one that is a little bit more hairy situation, then I jump into it. Other than that, is my staff takes care of stuff like that. As director, I wouldn't approve it in the way that it's written right now, because I'm going to show you how the code is written right now. Okay? Is it right here, Jacob? Yes. No. Right here. Okay. So right now, it's up. Yes, right here. It says rear yard and side yard accessory building. So it includes both of them. So I will permit it the way it is right now. So, but my city planner, since he didn't see, since it's right here, it says right here in a rear yard, and it doesn't say in the side yard on the actual body of the language, then he's saying no, I'm not approving it. And I respect that a lot too. Okay, so that's why we're trying to find if that building permit, I would have reviewed that one, I would have approved it. My staff wouldn't approve it, and also it's important that if there's a discrepancy of interpretation, it means something is wrong. So that's why we gotta come to a consensus. Something that I'm proposing, for example, right now is, because I understand, and the concern is like to have this row of buildings next to each other in a rural residential. So what we can say is keep the setbacks as how they are when it's on the side yard, on the backyard, and when it's gonna be on the side yard, okay? Then in many areas, if we wanna keep that a spacious area, instead of having 3 feet right here, we can make it to 10 feet, okay? We can make it to 10 feet. Then, whether if it's attached or detached, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Because if this building, okay, look at this, if this building, let's eat right now in the rural residential, is attached to it right here, and it's 10 feet from it right here, this will be permitted right now.
Yeah.
But this one will have to move, not 6 feet, but attach it, And if you attach it, you save 6 feet right there, plus the 3 we have right 9, so I will only add 1 extra, and that's 10 feet. So, in order to, this one right now, both will be permitted right now in the rural residential, the blue one and the red one, okay? In areas, Commissioner Fugel, when you have bigger lots, and in cases like this, we have a bigger side yard, then we can do something like that, and then maybe that's why I'm saying I'm throwing a monkey wrench into it, without you guys waiting on your voting, because that way we can say, in the case of a side yard, accessory structure, then the setback on the side, closer to the neighbor property or something like that, will need to be 10 feet. And then that will solve the problem, okay? If that's the case, I would like to continue, because it's a little bit more work, and I would like to add 1 or 2 things. Or you guys can ask me to add it, and then I can take it to the planning commission, to the city council like that. However, if you guys feel comfortable and trust that I will make the correct changes and add 10 feet, then I can do it like that, and we'll save 2 weeks.
Except what if you have a narrow lot, like I kind of
Then
do?
they won't be permitted.
I know,
then
and
they
I'm saying, but I could if I had it in R120.
Yeah, that's why I say I'm
That's why
gonna
I'm
throw
kind
a
of-
monkey wrench into that,
I
so
know.
you guys have multiple options,
Okay.
and then you guys discuss it, vote it, and make a decision.
Thank you.
I'm flexible. I'm flexible.
I think there's enough word changes that we should continue it, allow Daniel to rewrite so we can read it and I'll be on the same group.
And,
Okay with that too.
and not that I don't trust you, Daniel, but I would like to see it.
Yeah.
It's not a trust issue. It's,
No, I totally get it.
Also, in the rewrite though, and maybe we make this part of the continuance or not, but I was kind of uncomfortable when we said that there was a sneaky part of the code, right? That, oh, this is sneaky, it says 50 feet down here. If we can clean up anything that you would consider sneaky, because that's not the goal. Because the goal isn't to try and hide
What is this sneaky?
requirements.
Sorry, I don't understand the part of being sneaky. No, it wasn't sneaky that, it was just in a different part of the section. It's not that it
Well,
was strictly.
but that's what I'm saying. If there's a better way to write it, let's,
Oh, but
let's,
on this one is fixed. On the one that we're presenting.
no. Was it fixed down below? Anyway, take a look at that. If we're going to describe something as sneaky, let's not have it be sneaky.
No,
So, yeah, I think Jacobs gets what I'm, like, I don't think we need to talk about it more. Just read through the code. If you think that it should be included in a table, let's include it in a table rather than putting it down in a separate paragraph that feels like it's not achieving what the table is.
Get rid of that.
I get it. Just for so we can actually do it correctly. I want to know, see if Jacob can explain it to me, and we can work on it.
Yeah. So, like, for example, up here, it just says, accessory buildings can be located no closer than 20 feet. And so that's the first thing that people see. And so that's the first thing that they'll think, oh, hey, I can be 20 feet away from the house or something like that. But if you scroll down a little bit further, then it says, oh, hey, actually, no, if you're going to be using it for the housing of animals, then it's 50 feet. So it's just not like immediately right there.
No,
And we changed this.
I get that, but that's change. That's what I'm saying. So it's not as sneaky anymore. I need to be
Exactly.
clear on that. So it's
Exactly.
not. So it was hidden, but in the new code, it's not hidden anymore.
And so what Todd is trying to say is if there are other things that are kind of like this, that we can maybe
Okay.
rearrange to make a little bit.
If we're gonna take a look at this whole code anyway, let's clean up anything else that may be in there like that.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, I would take a motion.
Okay. I move the planning commission continue the request of Pleasant Grove City for the request of Ben Huntsman to amend city code 10-9A-8 yard requirements in rural residential zone until our next meeting in 2 weeks from today, which is, I don't know what the date is.
The 22nd of
The
May.
22nd of May, so we can have a chance to clean up the code that is written and get the proper wording to be reviewed for the planning commission.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Martineau and a second by Commissioner Phillips. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 24th, 2025?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from, what was it, April 24, 2025 meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Patton and a second by Commissioner Martineau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.